Hello everyone, this is Maiku with Starseed Tarot, and for today's reading we'll be picking a deck of tarot. I have 5 piles today, 5 different decks, and it is going to be a generalized reading. So the themes for each reading will range between a message from the other side to a message on your love and relationship or your career. So I'm not limiting myself today. This is going to be very generalized. I thought I would just do it this way because I have the different decks here. And as you know, for some of you who have been watching my readings, I use specific decks for a certain reading. And so I just kind of wanted to just try this format out. Yeah, we'll jump right into it. And so from the left, this is pile number 1, pile number 2, pile number 3, pile number 4, and pile number 5. And if you would like to pause to kind of meditate or take a look at the deck, I guess like art, the back of the deck, the back of the decks of tarot, you are more than welcome to pause that. And once you have decided, just go into the description box below or in the comment section where I have pinned the timestamps, and click on your reading and you will have your reading. And so without further ado, let's get started. Alright, pile number 1, this is your reading, and I will shuffle the cards as I usually do. So, pile number 1, the first card that was pulled was this card. And this card typically represents, upright, it typically represents the 5 of Wands. And the 5 of Wands, or staves, is about a conflict, right? A conflict, fighting between multiple people, and it coming to an end where there is one victor, or that everybody is just fed up with this one person. And so it seems like this message, the message that's kind of coming out right away is that you're basically at the end of a huge conflict, or it could be that a huge a huge conflict blew up, and now you guys are left to kind of put the puzzle pieces together or come to a resolution. And so with this also being upright, it could, or upside down, it could also mean that it's coming your way. So if it hasn't happened yet, expect something to happen where it's gonna blow up. Like a situation either between friends or with family members, and then having to make that decision. There's gonna have to be someone to make the decision to navigate the situation. It could just be that even with this reading, you find out about what this conflict or this situation could be. It just helps prepare you to for when it does happen. So it doesn't mean that you have to be constantly afraid that this thing is going to happen. It's just when you start seeing the conditions, or when you start looking at, say, like the conditions that make up this situation that can potentially happen, you have to take action, right? Like, you can't go around being afraid of this thing happening, but you do have to use your intuition to kind of pick out, like, oh my gosh, okay, so this is happening, okay, this is gonna blow up, these two people are starting to like go at each other's throat, how do I intervene, right? Because with the Knight of Pentacles, the Knight specifically is about strategizing and going into battle, right? Like, this Knight is ready to go into battle, or it is trying to make peace. It's trying to make peace with the parties, or it's trying to make peace with the people who are involved in the situation, and it's offering something too. This Knight is offering a negotiation. So you're going to be in a situation where you're stuck in the middle, and you have to make that decision for the rest of the people who are kind of like tangled up. It has to be you too, because maybe you're the more level-headed one. You're the more level-headed one. You're the one that actually, even if, say, like, you're the youngest, you're the more level-headed one. So you're the one that typically diffuses situations. And so this is going to happen to you and with you and amongst the friends and the family members that you surround yourself with. So something to just be aware of. And it's going to be ugly, right? The Death card. The Death card isn't so much about like bridges being burned. In the process, sometimes bridges do get burned, but the overarching look of this is it's the end of an era. It's the end of, this toxicity that keeps happening. And it has to happen this way. It has to happen this way because this has gone on too long, right? This toxicity between the people in your circle of friends, it's been happening for too long, and this is the time, this is the date, this is the conflict and the struggle that is gonna make it or break it, right? And so death doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to get hurt, like physically. It could even mean that obviously bridges are gonna be burned, but don't see it as a loss. See it as how it was meant to happen this way for us to learn and grow, right? Because if you keep grieving about this loss, that's what's going to hold you back. You're not going to be able to know how to move on from this, right? It's almost like you break up with an ex and you continue to ruminate over like the relationship you had with this ex, knowing that it was toxic, and yet you just keep ruminating on it, and you keep comparing the men or the women that you date with this ex, right? Whether it's comparing the positives or the negatives, you're ticking off these boxes and they're not meeting your standards, because the standards you've set are standards based on someone you had already cut ties with, right? So it's like you're trying to recreate a toxic scenario when you ruminate on past events or relationships with people you've already cut ties with. And so there's a reason why things explode and happen the way that they do, because it's teaching you a lesson how to move on from it, how not to ruminate, how not to like base your standards on these toxicity. If it happened and it's done and it's like a huge deal, leave it in the past and move forward. There's also a reason why the Grim Reaper is on a horse. It's like dead, but it's still moving forward. You can even see that there's a sun in the back, and for me, that's like that's interpreted as like the silver lining, right? And obviously you're gonna have time to heal from this situation. You can see down here, a lot of people, they're dead and they're grieving, but there's a reason why we grieve. We grieve to be able to process the hurt that we've experienced. If there was no grieving process, we just keep sweeping things under the rug, and all of a sudden, like, okay, now it's not so subtle anymore that there's things under the rug, right? And so the struggle or the this that happens is meant to happen because there's meant to be it's meant to lead to cutting ties to the person who actually keeps creating the conflict, right? So there is that. And then here it's kind of like I interpret the King of Cups as um, a very intuitive person, being in charge of your emotions, no longer allowing these toxic people in your life to affect and manipulate your truth and your honesty. And so you're gonna have a moment too where you have to process this, and it's not gonna be a long process uh, because these circumstances are gonna be like the end all be all to your ties with this toxic person. It's going to be the end of it, that you no longer have to be confined by these standards you set for yourself to be comfortable with this person. And so it's kind of like letting go of all of that. And that's what's going to happen with the situation. And then at the very end, we have the 10 of Cups. And the 10 of Cups, you can see everyone surrounding the campfire under the night sky. And they're very happy. They're warm, unconditional love. It's also a very good sign of things that are ending, that it's meant to be good. And so in a way, this is there is multiple meaning in this card, in that yes, there's going to be an ending, there's going to be an inevitable ending and cutting ties with people, but it's going to be a good one. It's going to be able to, it's going to allow you and the people who are affected by that person to heal and to love each other. If anything, it just brings you closer to them. So expect that a huge struggle is going to happen. And the message that I'm also getting from this is that you've already been equipped with all the emotional tools to know how to deal with this person. It also is showing you that this person, when you strip them of all the power that they've been given to be a very strong person, that when you strip that all away, they're actually not that powerful and not that intimidating, right? It kind of even makes them seem as though they are very, they are actually, what's a word for it? Like they're not to be taken seriously, and in the sense of like how they make other people feel like they've been given too much power, and so the things that they've done don't give them that power, right? You're no longer going to be doing that. You're no longer going to be handing this person power, because you're gonna cut those ties, right? You're gonna cut those ties with people. So just remember to stay in your truth. Know that you already have all the tools to deal with the circumstances. It's gonna end. It's gonna be ugly, but it's meant to happen that way. It's meant to happen that way because if it didn't happen earlier, then it has to happen now, because this person should have been taken out of either your social group or of your life for a long time now. But being the person that you are, you have to cover all your bases and not feel like you're crazy. You're feeling crazy because you're the only one seeing this. Know that you're not the only one seeing this. Other people see it too. It's just it takes for you to speak up, because you are the more calculated person. You're the more calculated person, and you're wiser in a sense. You're wiser than the people around you, even though you could be the younger one. So, pile number 1, this is your reading. I hope this resonated with you. If it did not, that's completely fine. This is very general, but also very specific. And so, if anything, if it doesn't resonate with you, that is completely fine. And you're more than welcome to hop onto the next reading or jump forward. Hello, pile number 2. This is your reading, and you have picked the Wildwood Tarot deck. And actually, this is the first deck that I purchased. I purchased, and I actually like using this deck to connect with ancestral spirit guides. And so, if you pick this deck, you're probably going to get a message, or you're looking for a message from either the other side or your ancestors. And so that's what I'm also channeling whenever I pick this deck. And I channel differently depending on the deck because of the art and also the intentions behind the creation of the deck. Okay, so I'm just gonna quick shuffle and mix these cards up. And I'm kind of feeling like you are in a place where you're very stuck right now. You're very stuck. You have kind of feel like there's no direction. You're wanting to ask for direction and also signs, right? But you're not seeing them. And you are not seeing them. Let's see. You may even be feeling like you've had quite a few things happen. You've had quite a few things happen, and you are not sure how to feel about it. Meaning that you feel like there's been a lot of mistakes on your behalf too, and you don't know how to fix it, right? Let me just see in the cards or in the deck. 12. Kind of feel like you're also in a rush to get those answers. A lot of impatience, especially with the Mirror card. A lot of impatience. You're wanting to make things happen in front of you. At the same time, you're not seeing how these events and things that are happening are actually a reflection of what you're trying to process. Let's see. Yeah, I'm kind of even feeling like you've been doing this for too long, right? Not being your true self or your honest self, and now it's catching up with you. Because of these circumstances that are happening, you're like, okay, why am I not seeing it? Or why do things keep happening? You have to start looking at the circumstances that you're experiencing to know why. And it sounds very contradictory, but essentially it's look at all the things that are happening to you as a reflection of what you have to face, right? I always talk about circumstances, good and bad, are an example of is in a sense the shadow work that you need to do. It's like unfinished business that you need to take care of. And the reason why you're not able to see the signs or see how things are manifesting for you is because there's blockages due to these circumstances, due to even like you being too much in your head or you pleasing others. There's like a level of like charming someone to disguise them with charming someone to disguise some of the knowledge that you know, if that makes sense. It's kind of like you're beating around the bush so you don't hurt someone, or you're beating around the bush so that you can manipulate the person to decide in your favor, right? And an example is you're afraid to tell someone that you want to use something of theirs, right? I was going to say a deck of cards. And with tarot cards, they're very, depending on who you talk to, tarot cards are very personal divination tools for readers and people who have the gift of seeing or interpreting. And so if you're wanting to ask somebody to use their deck of cards and you kind of feel like they're going to be reluctant, you will beat around the bush with asking them, right? Or you'll, in a way, try to deceive them into thinking that, in a way, you're deceiving them to disguise your actual intention, right? So even though so the request is you want to use your cards to do a reading for yourself, but you know that this person really loves and really what is the word I'm looking for? The person, the cards are very important to them, and you know that, but you want to use it. And so how you ask them to use the cards is, say you ask them that you want to see them, and then or you want to see the box, right? The cards are still in the box, and you ask them you want to see the box, but then they hand you the box, and then you open up the box and you start looking through the cards, right? Even this person values the cards and would never in a million years allow somebody else to touch the actual cards. And so that's kind of an example of what I mean. So whether your intentions were not meant to be malicious, they're still deceiving the person, if you get what I mean, right? So you're using white lies to disguise your actual intentions, and it's an example of how white lies can hurt somebody, right? So if we compare this to a situation where you may have knowledge that can potentially hurt that other person, but you don't want to deliver the blow, so you do it in a subtle way, but in a way that in the future, if this person finds out that that tiny bit of information was still withheld from them, that they'll still be mad, right? And so why am I trying to figure out an example? So it's like saying that asking your friend to go to a party knowing that the friend's ex could be there, but you don't tell your friend that the ex is going to be there. You just say, you say something like, no, they're not, or their brother's going to be there, but for sure they're not going to be there, right? But you know that that person is going to be there, and yet you still do a white lie to protect your friend. Well, in the end, it's still a lie that is it's disguising, it's information that's disguising like the truth that will hurt them. I don't know how to explain it. Anyways, I'm gonna move on because it's getting really hard for me to explain that. But anyways, so the first two cards that came up are upright, and it's the Mirror and the Knight of Vessels. And the Knight of Vessels is about going with the flow, but it's also about strategy, right? You're a very strategic person, and I'm getting a lot of Scorpio energy. I don't know why, but a lot of Scorpio energy where you're very smooth. You're a smooth talker, but sometimes you know the right way to say things that will just take off somebody, or depending on the context, some people might not take offense to it. So you're very like double-sided with your words, but you're also very charming, and you do it in a way where it's very charming, so it disguises what your original intentions are. And so I share this because that lie or that withholding information can also backfire. It backfires in a way where those people who you are doing that to, who will help you, are not going to help you, right? Because you're blocking yourself from these people because you're so used to tapping into this energy that you don't realize like you're doing this and you're hurting the people who are closest to you, right? And so hence like a lot of the signs that you keep asking for to direct you to direct you onto the path that you want to take, it's being blocked because you're also self-sabotaging by that, right? You're not being your honest self, and you're trying to, it could even be where you're not trying to hurt people, but you are withholding information because you know it'll hurt somebody, right? Even though you don't mean any harm, you're just really wanting to protect the people who you really care about. But that can only go so far. And so if you can't be your true and honest self, these things aren't going to come to you because you're creating more self-sabotaging and more karmic energy that is distancing you from your path. It's basically distancing you from your path. You're also so fixated on getting the things that you want that you forget to go with the flow, right? The Fool card, or actually Zero, the Wanderer, is about letting go and going into a situation without pre-calculating, without calculating what's going to happen. And so because you want things to work out in your favor so much, you're willing to withhold information so that things will work out in your favor. And to some people, and I can also speak for myself, I would prefer, even if it's going to be a truth that is going to hurt me, I'd rather know. Versus somebody just, withholding that, right? And I've been learning a lot about myself that way, and just how I communicate with others as well as receiving communication, is that I'd rather just speak truthfully, but also I'd rather people just be honest with me. Now, if somebody's trying to extract information from me, it's up to me whether I want to share that or not, because that information is for me, right? And it kind of sounds like I'm having double standards, but I would completely understand too if somebody else didn't want to share their whole story or what they know about their circumstances, right? If it's not directly impacting the other person, it shouldn't be that other person's business, anyways, right? So I'm on that bandwagon. So, anyways, you're so you want things to happen in your favor so much, you're willing to charm your way into it, and also use deceit at a very, very non-malicious level. And so, because you're trying to manipulate the energy around you, whether you know that you're doing it or not, that's also what's hindering your process and the things that are coming to you, right? Um, that's also why uh, it's hard for you to see the end goal, too, right? So with this reading too, it's also trying to deliver the message of like being in the now, just going with the flow, and allowing things to happen, um, being content with your current situations too, and not always thinking about the future, right? The pole star for me is about following that following that light, right? Following that light, being guided by the divine, the celestial, um, the why are words slipping my mind? Celestial, realm, the stars, following that, right? Um, that's how people navigated back in the days. They used the stars. And that was, in a way, scientific, but also on a spiritual level, following the stars, right? Following your heart. You didn't know how far I'm sure they didn't know how far these stars were. They didn't know what created it. They just knew them as lights in the sky, and they followed them, right? There's something very spiritual, moving in a spiritual sense about following the stars. And I feel like um, having just that hope of believing in something that you've never held in your hand is very powerful. Having hope in that, right? We can also see it as like emotions, and also the feelings that we have for our loved ones and the ones who love us. We hold on to those things, and although we can't hold them and we can only feel them, we follow that. We follow these emotions connected to the people who make us feel at home. We follow them, and it helps guide us, right? And so, in a way, your inability to also trust others, because you're constantly trying to manipulate the way that people answer you. You're not trusting them enough to give you the truth, right? You could be working so hard to manipulate the person into deciding in your favor that as you're trying to manipulate them, and they give you the answer, it might not even be the answer that you want, right? Because people are smarter than you think, especially those who are on a spiritual journey, right? Those who are very empathic, they're gonna know when you're lying. And so once they get the hint that you are lying, they're not gonna work in your favor. They might just say the exact opposite, because they know that what you're doing is not from your authentic self. It's not from your authentic self, and so they're not going to give into that. They're not going to give into inauthenticity, is basically what I'm saying. And so this card, Ace of Arrows, the Breath of Life, is also upside down, because you're so busy trying to manipulate how things and energies are around you that you are, in a way, unconsciously trying to manipulate life, right? It's like artificial. It's artificial, and the breath of life was flipped upside down. And so, for me, obviously, the breath of life is just something instinctive. Like, we need to do it to live. All living things need to do it to live. And if you are trying to manipulate people on how they should be breathing, the thing that you're going to receive in return is going to be inauthenticity. In addition to that, there's also the Ace of Arrows, right? It's completely upside down, and it's upside down, and it's not pointing away, right? If we flipped it this way, it would be pointing away. It would be showing you the direction, but that arrow is pointing to you, and it's telling you you have to listen to your intuition. Your intuition, in a way where it's like your brain isn't trying to manipulate the outcome, if that that makes sense. Like, you're not consciously trying to manipulate the outcome. And it's about listening to your gut instincts, right? If something doesn't feel right, if you feel that that person is going to say no to you, how do you deal with rejection? Maybe it's not about you don't want to feel rejection, but even when they reject you, how do you sit in that emotion and process it? Because in your whole life, you're gonna experience rejection, and you're gonna have to learn how to deal with it, right? You can't just live like 20, 30, 40 years and not experience rejection, right? So if you can't escape it, you might as well figure out how to process it. So what the Breath of Life card is telling me too is that you're so afraid and you're so worried about how people are going to judge you and how people are going to reject you that you're not even giving yourself time to breathe. You're not giving yourself time to breathe or the space to breathe. Not only that, there's an arrow that's heading in your direction, and what it's saying is like, no, you don't need to go anywhere else. You have to look inwards, right? You have to look inwards. Because if you keep going down this path, you are going to expect this. And you're going to have to experience this. Rest. Rest is upside down. It's not that it's already happened. It's going to come. It's going to come. You're going to have to experience leveling up, right? And it's going to be hard. And the reason why you're dealing with all of this right now is because you're leveling up. But you're going to get to a point where you're going to be very defeated. You are going to be very defeated. And it's okay. It's about dealing with all of these emotions that we typically associate as negative. But it's about dealing with that. Because we're all human. We all have to experience these things. We all have to know how to develop the skills to cope with hard situations like this, like rejection or failure, or with your current circumstances, being okay with the now. All right. So pile number 2, this is your reading. I know it was a little everywhere, but I hope this resonated with you. And if it didn't, feel free to either skip backwards to the first pile or move forward and have a listen at the other piles. Hello, pile number 3. This is your reading, and it looks like this reading is for those who may be looking for updates on their love life. And if it doesn't sound like you, I would ask that you still be open to the reading, because who knows, this might resonate with you. Okay, so what I'm going to do is shuffle the cards. Okay. Alright, it looks like for people from this pile, you're going to experience again, either you're going to experience or you're currently experiencing a way out of a certain situation. A way out of a situation, you don't know what it looks like yet, but you're going to see it. You're going to experience it. You're also going to experience this kind of like blessing in disguise. You're currently trying to create a life that You're currently trying to create a life where you can live comfortably and also have an outlet, right? Uh, Again, I said at the very beginning that this is my deck that I use for love readings, and so um, I kind of even have a feeling that you're waiting on someone, or somebody is waiting on you. Somebody is waiting on you. And I'm getting that with this guy right here, King of Cups. Or you could be in a moment of contemplation, trying to figure out what direction to go next. You're at the peak of where you are in terms of finances or career or love, and you're wondering what's next, right? Do know that a moment of abundance is going to come your way with the Nine of Pentacles. And then over here you have the Six of Swords. And so what I'm getting from that is that you'll have this moment of abundance, but it'll also be through hard work. And you can only go up from there. Okay. Let's see. I'm kind of even getting the feeling that you may have a lot on your plate right now. A lot on your plate. You're juggling all these swords, right? You're juggling all these swords. You're trying to figure out, okay, who's gonna help me? Who do I recruit? What's gonna happen, right? And then this card is also like you're trying to you're trying to imagine, plan or brainstorm what that next stage is going to look like. You're trying to figure that out. On top of that, you're trying to be humble about it too. You're trying to be humble about it. You're trying to think about everything that you've had or you've created, or you've worked hard for up until this point. What else can you do with it? Because you have everything you need too, especially with the Nine of Pentacles. But you're wanting to see where else it can take you. You're ready to prepare your boat or your ship and move on to the next level, on to the next thing, right? You're not one to sit and be comfortable where you are. You're constantly like on the go. You want something new. You are also very adaptable to the different environments that you're in. I'm definitely getting like a water sign just because of the King of Cups, and also the energy that I'm getting from this reading. It's like you just can't be in one place for too long. You have to keep going. Your brain is always going. On top of that, your career or wherever your career takes you, you've been so used to moving around. And you somehow always manage to do that while still managing your career. I'm going to pull out some more cards. Opportunities are going to be coming up, and it's going to be hard. There's a storm in the background of these staves. That means that it's going to be rough. It's going to be a rough uphill climb as you're building towards this new like level up. But to you, you're so used to it. You're very used to that. Actually, in a way, that's how you can feel normal. Six of staves. You really haven't had a time to celebrate, but that moment of celebration may be coming soon. And if it is, it's probably for a short period, because then you're going to be like, okay, on to the next one. I can't sit and celebrate for like 5 days. I have to be on to the next thing. Yeah. In terms of a love life, right? Now I'm totally backtracking because this seems more like a career reading. But for love readings, Again, when you put it into words that can resonate with your love life, it could be that you're cutting off ties with uh, somebody, and this other person is also waiting for you. And so those signs of when this person is going to come into your life, they're around, they're definitely around, but you may not even be in a position to settle down just yet. You want to figure everything else first, right? Because you've just cut ties with this person and you're not yet ready to move on. But just know that that person is waiting. That person is waiting for you. Opportunities are going to come up. I kind of even feel like there's going to be a lot of suitors. Suitors meaning a lot of people are going to show that they're interested, but they're not going to be the one, because obviously you're not going to feel it, right? You're not going to feel that connection. So expect that a lot of suitors. And they're just going to be coming out of the woodworks, but you're just not having it too. You're not having it. It could even just be something like people sending you DMs and you're like over it. What else? What else can I get from this reading? And I'm kind of even feeling like the situation that you were in before, maybe it was hindering that relationship that you are cutting off ties with. It was hindering your abundance. It wasn't allowing you time and space to also think about what's best for you. And this person who's going to come into your life is going to show you that. And once that person comes into your life, everything's just going to blossom. Right? Everything's going to blossom. Everything is just going to be a lot easier. The Suit of Swords for me is about strategizing, thinking carefully about what your next move is going to be, an action plan, right? And over here is the Seven of Swords, and it's upside down, or it's reversed. And so it's kind of like you've been working really hard as well. You've been working really hard on this relationship. Now you're just like tired of it. You're like tired of working so hard, but with this new person who's going to come into your life, it's going to be a lot easier. Less strategizing. It's just going to flow. And of course, like, abundance is going to be there. Everything's just going to be very harmonious with this next person. He or she's going to be a very intuitive person, empathic person, very careful with their words and very loving. Just knows how to say the right things that will either soothe you or teach you how to love yourself again. And again, like the Eight of Spades, right? You're just not going to have it. All these people are going to be like, hey, I want to chat. And you're like, no, actually, I don't. That's why the Six of Staves is also upside down, right? You're not going to be welcoming it. It's kind of the energy that I'm getting with the Six of Staves too. All right. So, pile number 3. This is your reading. Again, I know this is also everywhere. It's kind of like a dual reading. But I hope that something in this reading resonated with you. And if it didn't, you are more than welcome to hop onto the other piles to have a listen. Alright, this is the reading for pile number 4. Okay. Alright, so what I'm getting from this reading is that um, there's a situation that's happened, right? And you felt like you've been wronged. Now is the time that the universe is going to deliver you signs that it's going to be okay. That not necessarily that it's going to work in your favor, but things are going to resolve itself. I don't even want to say karma because it's not so much karma, but you're going to come to a place where you see why these things happened. You see why these things happened, you find forgiveness in your heart, and you won't be so bound by the things that people have done that have hurt you, or the situation where this person has hurt you. Queen of Cups is in reverse, and the Cups is about water energy, right? And water being associated with intuition, empathy, and just going with the flow. And it's reversed, and so it could even be that the person who wronged you realizes that they were in the wrong. They were in the wrong, and you're gonna be receiving that sign some way, somehow, right? You're gonna receive that sign either by word of mouth from a friend, or in the signs that just somehow show up, right? So, Queen of Cups. Or either that, you're going to find yourself in a state where you're processing that discernment and that empathy to help you deal with the trauma. The trauma of like how people have hurt you. You're also having to make that decision too. Making that decision on whether you want to forgive that person or hold on to those grudges. And it's here with the Two of Cups, right? The Two of Cups and the heart. The heart's like reversed. So it's like you're going to realize that if I don't do this, how am I healing? How am I healing if I keep trying to hold somebody else responsible for how they hurt me? And while they should be responsible or accountable, whether they do it or not, try to be in a place where you're not putting yourself in a vulnerable situation to seek the signs and the guidance that you need to heal from the situation, right? As you know too, you're a person who is very good at making things happen too, right? Somehow, even without asking, sometimes it just happens. Like you just get these messages and it's confirmed. And so trust that about yourself too. Trust that your team is actually there protecting you, but also delivering you the messages that you need to hear to heal. Here is the Five of Cups too. It's almost like there's an ending to that struggle. There's an ending to this lesson that you constantly keep having to this lesson that you keep having to face, or you keep having to experience. And I say this to a lot of people. There's a reason why things keep happening to you, because it helps you to process the tough emotions, to know how to heal from it, so that when it does happen again, you can evaluate how each time you respond to it. So say you can remember a time when you were hanging out with friends, and an acquaintance of a friend says something that's just completely ignorant, and in that instance you're triggered, and you really want to speak up but you can't, and then after that instance you're like beating yourself up like, oh, I should have said this and this and this and this. Well, you're gonna hold on to those that energy and that grudge, and you're gonna think, okay, the next time this person says something, I'm gonna counter it and I'm gonna say something to them, and I'm gonna say this. And sure enough, the opportunity comes up and you say it, but then in hindsight you feel like it's very out of character. It's very out of character for you, and you start thinking like, oh man, was that out of line? Was that out of line for me calling them out and saying these things? So then you start feeling conflicted about these two kind of like situations that you've played out in your mind, how to resolve it, right? Because how a person hurts you, it's inevitable that you want to retaliate, or you want to either hurt them, their feelings, or you want them to be accountable. And so there's a difference between retaliation and also accountability, right? True accountability is just coming up to that person and telling them, hey, like, this wasn't right, and I feel like, how you said this really hurt me. And then however that person responds, it's going to be confirmation about your emotions anyways, whether they apologize or not, right? So based on just how you approach that situation differently from how you did in the past, right, of either shutting down, right, because you didn't like that either, or speaking up and retaliating, well, that didn't work either, because then you're feeling like, oh man, this isn't me. And then third, you're approaching it from the standpoint of like, hey, being civil about it, right? And being civil doesn't necessarily mean that you're backing down your ferocity or your integrity. It just means, hey, like, what's the deal? I'm willing to talk to you about this, right? And then from the interaction, from these 3 interactions you've had with this person, you can finally decide or make that judgment about, well, not so much justice, but judgment about, how to move forward with your interactions with them, right? It doesn't necessarily mean like making a judgment that is based on whether you like them or not. It's also then going to another level of understanding, okay, why do they talk to me like this? Like every situation I've had with them, it just makes me feel icky. So then it helps you to think, well, okay, why do they keep doing this? Well, I know it's not me, because I'm just being my regular old self. So how do you process that, right? How do you then enter the mode of discernment? How do you enter the phase of discernment to understand, oh, maybe this person is like this because somebody's treated them like that, right? And for me, I've been in situations like that too, where I responded in those three exact ways, and I received my confirmation, and I let go. I let go of it. I find time to heal, forgive myself, and forgive them, and also understand like where I was at that time and where they were at that time, and move forward. It just means like, you know what? You're just not vibing with this person, and it's okay. You don't have to be everybody's friend. And so anyways, the energy that I'm getting from these cards is that you're really just trying to learn how to process how people have hurt you, and how to do it in a way where it's living your authentic self without having to harm other people, right? Because you don't want to hurt somebody else either. That's not your authentic self. If you truly live by the morality of unconditional love and kindness, and this is just an example, right? Because I don't want to be like, well, this is what you should be. This is like the ultimate, like, holier than thou, like, that's not what I'm trying to say at all. But if you really truly feel in your heart like you are a kind person, and you want to continue spreading unconditional love, right? You don't want to do that to even the people who have hurt you before. You don't want to say things that are going to harm the person, because you know these people better than themselves in certain circumstances, right? They probably don't even know that they're doing it. And so how do you also handle what you're dealing with, and finding a place of forgiveness for these people too, right? And I'm talking about this more from a standpoint of interpersonal relationships, right? um, so yeah, so I think the energy that is being channeled through these cards is that you don't have to do anything, and the people who hurt you, uh, something is gonna come up that is gonna confirm to you, like, oh, they've been treating me like this is because it's like this. It's not okay, but I know where they're coming from, and I don't have to hang around them. Like, I know for sure now, right? Because a lot of times, we get cynical because we're trying to find out how much somebody doesn't like us. And then once we find out this person maybe doesn't like us, or maybe that's just how they are, we still get mad about it, right? Like, we can't change the way that they are. We can't change their traumas either. And so once we get to the point of like, okay, yeah, you know that this person doesn't like you for whatever odd reason, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to retaliate? Are you going to treat them the same way just to hurt them? Or are you just going to completely ignore it? Or are you going to completely be understanding of their situation and just avoid them, right? Avoid them. Or if you can't help it, but be in the same space because for whatever reason, maybe you work with them, or maybe they're a family member and you have to be in that space with them. Figure out a way to shield yourself from that. Figure a way to shield yourself from that person, and take the right precaution. Take the right precaution to protect yourself. And so I think this is all that I have for pile number 4. If you would like an extended reading, you're more than welcome to email me. I used to have my services on Etsy, but I since took them down. But you can always message me at my contact information below. So if this resonated with you, that's awesome. If it didn't, you are more than welcome to hop onto the other readings to find out the messages that may be resonating with you. So thank you again. I will see you in the next video. Hello, this is the reading for pile number 5. And I will do my shuffle. Out and shuffle them again. Okay. Shuffle. Okay, I'm gonna shuffle it again because that was a sloppy shuffle. All right, so here we go. All right. So, I'm going to look in the booklet. And the first card is a Three of Pentacles. And it's reversed. And so in its reverse form, it's about mediocrity in work and otherwise, pettiness and weakness. And so typically the Three of Pentacles is about trade or nobility, aristocracy, renown, and glory, right? And then in reverse, it's the opposite. Okay, so it's opposite of that. And so it could be like you're not doing the most for whatever that you're trying to do. So if it's like a new job and you really want this new job, maybe it's that you haven't been doing enough. It's not that you're not a good worker. It's just there are things that you still have yet to do. So it's not your time yet. It's not your time yet to get this new job. The Five of Pentacles is also reversed, and some of the things that are associated with this reverse card is disorder, chaos, ruin, discord, and profligacy. I have no idea what that means. So upright, it's about material trouble, right? Having financial issues, not having enough, right? Because if you can see, this husband and wife are poor and they're outside of church. And so not even the church can help them in their circumstances. And so in reverse, it's even more so about disorder. Maybe it's that it's stemming from that mediocrity, right? The mediocrity of the Five of Pentacles. You're not working hard enough. Could it even be that maybe your work ethics aren't healthy work ethics, right? It doesn't necessarily have to mean that these two cards or this reading is about work. It could even be about your current situation, and take it with a grain of salt, but these are just kind of examples that I am seeing right now, where it could be a situation where you wrong somebody and you're dealing with it right now. You haven't been doing things by the book and you're having to deal with it right now because the Justice card comes out. I'm kind of even getting the energy of that you were an accomplice to the situation and you're having to deal with that. The Justice card comes up. I think it's also about having to go through all of that, or maybe the people who there's a situation where you have it wrong and the universe is delivering justice, right? It's delivering justice. It's going to right the wrongs in the sense that it's not going to reverse the situation. It's just going to be like, now you have to really pay your dues, right? You're going to have to really pay your dues. Like if you made some hiccups, if you overlooked some things, and it doesn't necessarily have to mean like a situation where you harmed somebody or you were taking something. It could even just be where you overlooked a minor detail in the pile of work that you did, and you thought that it wasn't going to be an issue, and you didn't go to your higher ups to talk to them about it. You just did it. Well, it's going to come up. It's coming to the surface, and you're going to have to deal with it. I think in pile, I think it was like pile number 2, I had mentioned that too, where you have to deal with these situations to know how to process them in the future. In addition to that, it's also about living your authentic self. The reason why you overlook these things and you didn't care to bring it to the attention of your higher ups, or to maybe like it's an information that could potentially hurt somebody, but would be very helpful for that person to know, but you withheld it and now it's coming to the surface. Well, it's going to be put out there, right? It's going to be put out there, and you're going to have to deal with the blows. The only risk in it is that people are going to know, right? People are going to know, or it's going to be aired out. Because of this, you may lose relationships, or you may lose your job, but I think that, or an opportunity, because I mentioned earlier, it could potentially be a new job. You may lose the opportunity for that new job, but know that there's always a way to come out of it, come out of the woods, right? Be out of the woods with it. And so, why is it going to be okay? Because if you have the will to want to repair it, it's going to be repaired. It's just going to take some time. You see, the Ten of Wands is about structure, right? And opportunities, and also kind of like the brute force, the physical energy, the physical things. You're going to have to work on it, right? So it goes back to, if you just keep sulking in the mistakes that you made, how are you going to be able to be better? You're just going to accept that you're this type of person and you're not going to want to change. In addition to that, if it's a situation that makes you feel like, makes you feel really horrible and almost to the extent of feeling like you're not worth it, be very careful with that. Be very careful with the way that you talk to yourself in that sense. You have to also believe like you can exist in a space where you own up to your mistakes, but you can also get better. You have to own up to the fact that you have hurt people, but you're going to do better, and you're going to treat people better. You're going to handle situations better. It's going to be a situation where you're going to learn from your mistakes. These mistakes that, if they were to happen again in the future, no doubt, like, it's going to impact the livelihood of others. And so you have to be willing to do the work if you want people to believe that you have changed from the situation, right? And this, again, it doesn't mean that you have malicious intent. It could just be where you have just gotten away with, people, well, not so much people. You've gotten away with some of these small mistakes that you keep making. And you keep saying that you got it, and you keep acting like you've fixed it, but really you haven't. You just kind of masked it. Not only that, you have been in situations where your quality of work is being jeopardized because you're working so hard to hide your mistakes, right? You're working so hard to hide your mistakes that you're not willing to own up to it. And what's going to happen is that, again, those things are going to come to the surface. You can't just apologize for those mistakes and then think that that person has forgiven you. You have to actively work on changing so that those mistakes don't happen. And that's what the Ten of Wands is about. Then here comes the Ten of Pentacles. Like, once you have done all of that, and I know you have it in yourself to change, right? Change your habits, your unhealthy habits, that things are just going to flow, right? I've also been in situations where I've made countless mistakes. And it was like budget tracking, and then also writing contracts. And it was the hugest mistake I've ever done. And I still like regret not being honest with my boss. And so eventually what happened is it came up, right? It came up. There's no way that I was going to dig myself out of the situation. It came up and I just had to own up to it and I just had to fix it. And because this event was so traumatizing for me, it's like, my boo, why did you put yourself in this situation? Why couldn't you be honest with yourself? Like, this is not you. You have to start working on being honest with yourself and the people around you to be able to do your work effectively, as well as, see how you see yourself actually doing what you love best. Whether it's dealing with rejection or dealing with, being told that, constructive criticism, basically. And then how do you balance that with, like, okay, yeah, I need to work on this, so this is what I'm going to do, right? And then when you're able to do that, things are just going to flow. You just live more comfortably in your skin and you feel more confident doing your work. Because then the other thing too is that, if there's an inability to welcome changes and actively work on it, it again could hinder that. It could hinder your process of obtaining all of that. I do kind of feel like you're not yet ready to make such a drastic change because the Nine of Pentacles comes out, and the Nine of Pentacles is about roguery, right? Being a rogue, deception, voided project, and bad faith. So there is some bad habits that you really, really need to deal with, really, really need to handle, in order to continue to maintain this abundance of everything, right? Abundance in your life. Because if you can't, again, it goes back to like being authentic. If you can't be authentic, then you're just gonna navigate your whole life feeling like you have to put up this front in front of different people. And if you think about it, throughout your whole life, you could have built relationships, or you build relationships with hundreds and thousands of people, and if you act differently in front of all these people, you basically have like 1,000 plus like alter egos, because you're constantly shifting yourself depending on the person that you're with. And so if you keep falling back onto this habit of deceiving others, hiding who you truly are, or even being honest with yourself, you're just gonna continue to fall in this cycle, right? You're gonna constantly come across situations where problems are gonna come up, the results are gonna come up, the consequences are gonna come up, and you're gonna have to rebuild that, right? Keep rebuilding those relationships. And you're just gonna keep getting caught in this cycle, and you're just not gonna be happy. I think that's putting it bluntly, but essentially, it's about sending unconditional love to others too, because what you send out into the universe comes back tenfold. And I can honestly speak for myself, is that really all I ever want is to be loved or included or loved unconditionally despite my mistakes, and despite like the things that I have said or done, right? Like that somebody just understands me and understands my circumstances. And really, I can honestly say, like, quite a few people that I know also just want to experience that, right? But anyways, pile number 5, this is your reading. That's the energy that I am channeling. You have to figure out a way to snap yourself out of the cycle if it is tiring for you. But if you're so used to the cycle, then by all means, like, do so in a way that isn't going to be harmful to others, right? Harmful to others and the people around you. Um, I'm not saying like lie in disguise. I think do it in a way that is going to protect you, um, where it doesn't re-trigger some of those traumas. Um, it's like if you feel like you can't share a part of your story with others because you don't want to relive those emotions or those complicated emotions, then by all means, like, you don't have to tell people, right? But if you are outright lying to people that, you know, if you're outright lying to people that you don't know how to do something when you actually do, but you don't want to do it, so you lie to somebody else just so that they can do it for you, well, that's like more work for that person, and that person's going to catch on to what you're doing because people are going to get into the habit of being very comfortable with those habits, bad habits, and then people are just going to end up being fed up with it. And anyways, we know how that cycle looks like. But I'm not going to go too much into it because I'm feeling like I'm steering more into the direction of like this is what you should do. I'm just trying to practice delivering the message so that it can help you process whatever it is that you're going through. And so pile number 5, this is your reading. Thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you in the next video.